Hello and welcome to News Desk with me, Kemini Nyamani Emmanuel. On the table this morning, we'll discuss the partial withdrawal of service by a section of the air traffic controllers at the Kotoka International Airport. We understand that it's left a lot of passengers stranded. I will delve into the matter. My colleague Iti and our peers visited the area, and she's brought us some news from there. We'll also get a quick update on the Konfanochi Teaching Hospital as far as finding the missing babies is concerned. Have they found a baby? Have they not found a baby? Would get you some answers to that question in the course of the program. We deal with the free senior high schools. It's been a topic on the table. A lot of debate about it. Who brought it first? Who said it second? And whether or not it's in the Constitution. We'll delve into the matter and if we've been having the right conversation since the announcement at the State of the Nation Address 2014. And these are many more we'll deal with on the program this morning. I'll be so glad if you share your thoughts and comments with me on any of the issues we are discussing on News Desk. You can do so on our social media platforms, Joynews on TV, on Facebook, and Joynews on TV. On Twitter as well. I tweet also at Kemini. I'll be so glad to share your thoughts with the rest of us here in this community. Let's get into the first issue of the day, and we'll look at the Konfanochi Teaching Hospital. An obstetrician and gynecologist at the Konfanochi Teaching Hospital, Dr. Ernest Kwako, says news making waves that they have resolved to treat 3 patients a day is not true. Speaking on the AM show, Dr. Ernest Kwako also said only 3 dead babies are missing and not 5 as has been reported. Let's take a listen.
Are you on strike? I mean, the medical practitioners there, are you on strike at all?
Roland, no, not at all. We are not on strike. We are working fully, and indeed, we are working like we used to do before. Okay. And nothing has changed. Indeed, let me take the opportunity to say that it is not true what is making rounds in the media that we have resolved to take care of only 3 patients. I mean, that's it's unrealistic, and it's nothing near what we do.
Perhaps not you, but some of your colleagues have resolved, and I'm sure that might have filtered into the media circles.
Yeah, so we want an opportunity to correct that. When there's mischief is, in quote, created by media, you cure it by media. I don't think that we need to shy away from the media. I think that we must correct the misimpression. Perhaps what the practitioner, whoever, not you, but multimedia journalists spoke to, meant that in taking care of women in labor, if you want maximum efficiency and quality, then each provider within a period assigned to him or her will be maximally effective if you take care of 3 at a time. Because remember that when you are monitoring a woman in labor, you are monitoring 2 persons, an unborn baby, which we consider a human being dear to our heart, and then a mother. We want, one of the joys that maybe the public doesn't know that we have is that when you take care of a woman for 9 months and she delivers a healthy baby, look, that joy that we get, money cannot replace that. So monitoring the 2 individuals is so critical. And that maybe what the practitioner meant, and which was miscarried, was that in taking care of those people, to get maximum efficiency, maybe you do 3 at a time. Truth is, we do more than that. It's only a miracle, and by God's grace, that we are able to get the results that we get.
But we do understand that. But as a medical professional yourself, and having practiced all these years, do you think that it is normal procedure for a baby to be born stillbirth? We do understand that, but the mother not informed, and the baby carried away to be, I don't know whether disposed of or buried. I don't know how you want to term it.
Yeah, thank you for this question.
It doesn't seem a bit unusual.
Yeah, thank you for this question. It's not the case at all. Our usual standard practice, and which we always do, and I'll defend it to the hilt, is that when a baby is born, if it's alive, we declare it. If it's dead, we declare it. And indeed, because this matter is under investigation, we've tried to be we are playing our cards well and not going ahead of the investigations. But some things are making rounds. So in this particular case, I can assure you that the woman was duly told that her baby was indeed dead. perhaps if I don't risk saying this ahead of the investigations, perhaps what may not have been adequate. The pressure on us, we cannot come and then be spending about 30 minutes to 1 hour on you, trying to counsel and explain to you why that your baby is there. We are trying to comfort you. Maybe we'll do it for about 10 to 15 minutes. But hey, get on with it so that we can see other people. We want to help them so that they will have live babies. Perhaps that one, you can say that because of the pressures of our work and the imbalance in the practitioner to citizen ratio, maybe we don't have that time that we should have to be pampering people.
Well, we do understand.
We do our best.
While you do your best, many people would say that's more like an excuse than anything else. But you know, the Ministry of Health had.
We'll get back into this matter, but there's something that's happening now, and I would like us to join Gifty Ando up here at the airport. It has to do with the partial withdrawal of service by a section of the air traffic controllers. We understand the airport administration is addressing members of the media. Let's take a listen.
Yes, already somebody has a question.
Yes, I thought that you were going to give us some briefing and then probably based on that.
Yeah. That is what it's going to be. I will give you the briefing, and then you obviously have the opportunity to ask any questions. So that is how it is going to go. My briefing is going to be very simple and short. A couple of weeks ago, the air traffic controllers, that is, they do have an association called GATCA, the Ghana Air Traffic Controllers Association. They wrote to the Minister for Transport expressing certain concerns.
We'll get back to the office of the Ghana Civil Aviation Authority, where a press conference is being held at the moment to address the challenge of a partial withdrawal of service by a section of the air traffic controllers of the Kotoka International Airport. Let's join them again.
Air traffic controllers. As we speak, the committee is at work and yet to present its report to the board. Once the report is presented to the board would review it and then respond to the minister on whatever concerns that the air traffic controllers have raised. And hopefully the minister then will take it from there. The air traffic controllers threatened a strike en route to domestic carriers, telling them that they plan going into a strike, and the strike would affect them mostly, that is the domestic carriers. Well, of course, the board and management had to take note of this warning. They also wrote to the press indicating that there was total confusion in Ghana Civil Aviation Authority, specifically the engineering aspects, and probably since they have also raised concerns, that would be in their area as well. Discussions have been going on till now. They met with the minister. Of course, the minister made certain assurances and pleaded with them to stop the intended strike. And so they decided to hold off for a while. We get up this morning only to find that, yes, what they threatened, because the minister had not come back to them, they were going to pursue it. And this is what we find, where we find ourselves this morning. we have to understand that it's air traffic controllers who are on strike in civil aviation. It's not all of civil aviation that is on strike. That has to be very clear. The committee that has been set up has to finish with its job, present it to the board to review, after which
Right, so we've been listening to Air Commodore Kwame Manfi. He's in charge of the Ghana Civil Aviation Authority. He's been telling us that indeed the issue of why the air traffic controllers are on strike now came up last month. I'm sure you recall that, and a committee was set up to look into the matter. The committee has not finished its work, and that is why the workers have not had what is due them. But there's more to hear, so let's go back to this Ghana Civil Aviation Authority conference.
They left quite early and blocked. So we have passengers in Kumasi, passengers in Tamale, passengers in Accra here, and also Takoradi. I would like, at this point in time, to render my sincerest apology to all those passengers who have been locked up in other airports in the country, and to assure them that we, as an organization, will do our best to ensure that operations are restored as quickly as possible. In fact, the strike, the air traffic controllers indicate, affects only the domestic operations and not international operations. Yeah. But of course, there are issues there, there are questions to be asked there about this kind of operation. We have tried to be as prudent as possible on this matter and not rush to the press. They have written several letters to the press, this is happening, that is happening, but I do not think that is the way to go. Once there are discussions ongoing, then we need to be a bit prudent about our statements and comments to the public on the subject. We are hoping that we can resolve this issue in-house and very quickly. My board is very much aware of the situation. Over the weekend, that is Friday, Saturday, we were in Tamale. We discussed the issues extensively. The minister traveled last week, just came back. She's very much into the picture. We are expecting that she'll be here sometime in the day for us to continue with the process. So, in brief, this is what is happening to the Ghana Civil Aviation Authority. Flights, admittedly, have been disrupted. Domestic flights. Again, I would like to apologize to all passengers who have been affected in this action, and we hope that at the appropriate time we would make it up to them. We apologize also to the airlines, the carriers. Obviously, they will have challenges, and we are hoping to meet them pretty soon to also discuss issues and the way forward. On this note, I would like to leave the floor for any questions that you may want to ask. Yes. Now, just a short one. The committee also invited GATCA. And so GATCA was at that committee to make their point. Okay, so you can understand that there are some aspects of this issue that I might not be able to give out answers because that could be prejudicial, and I do not want to get into that trap. But as much as possible, I would answer questions to the best of my ability. Let's start from here, Odelia.
I want to find out how long you think this strike action is going to take, or your anticipation and your discussion, engaging the issues. That's one. My second issue is, what are their grievances? What do they want, for which you have taken 2 weeks to look into, and how soon was the committee supposed to be coming out with its findings, for which they could no longer wait?
Well, how long this is going to take, I think that where we've gotten to in the discussions and with the intervention of the ministry, I think that within hours we should be able to resolve the issue. Yes, madam.
Did I hear you say, you said within hours?
Yes.
You are looking at possibly today?
Yes.
Okay, my problem is, this is a service.
Sorry. My second issues were not discussed. What are their grievances, and why couldn't they wait for the committee to complete its work?
Well, why couldn't they wait for the committee to complete its work? They may have to answer that. Yeah. Okay. But what are the grievances? I think that I should not go into that aspect because it could affect the ongoing discussions and negotiations. Yeah. But it's written, it's all there, and I'm sure that at the end of the day, a report, when issued, I'm sure that eventually the press will get to know exactly what their grievances are. Yes, madam. Oh. Okay. Okay. Okay.
I want to know, because you are in charge of all activities and operations where air travel is concerned. You have a host of dissatisfied travelers in front of the domestic terminal. Nothing has been communicated to them as far as they told me. They have not received any kind of solace. Most have been standing for hours. There's no place for them to sit. Nobody's telling them anything at all. What is going to happen to those customers? They've had to cancel meetings. They've had to put everything on hold to accommodate these things. I'm talking about this because usually it is the customers who bear the brunt of such actions. So what is the authority going to do for those affected travelers?
Yes.
If I can quickly add one to it for you respond. It's been 2.5 hours, and you also said you have a contingency in place. So I'm wondering, why hasn't it kicked in this yet for the passengers to be stranded there for almost 2.5 hours?
Yes. The contingency to kick in, we do not state how long it takes to get the contingency in place. You came here and met me in a meeting, right? Because we are in that phase of getting the contingency in place for the operations to commence very quickly. Yeah, so that is the situation. There is a contingency, but it takes time for us to activate it. And so this is the phase in which we are. That is why probably I kept you here waiting, but this is the situation. So they are out there. You can see I pulled out only a few people just to help address this situation. It's about the grievances. I think that I would not want to create a situation where because the committee invited the group, and they also were asked questions. So let's wait and see what happens. We are now okay. I go into your customer issue, madam. You're right. I mean, and this morning I've spoken to 2 stations already, and I was the first to apologize to them that this is an unfortunate situation. This is not something that should happen. I'm also not going to, at the same time, also say that, well, these are activities which sometimes bedevil the industry. The industry gets into some of these things. You know, if you go back and do some research into this kind of strikes in the industry, you will see exactly the trend. We are sorry. Yes, we should be held responsible for this morning's our inability to respond to the airlines this morning. But at the same time, we also need to be careful, you know, so that we don't overplay the card. Let's wait. Let's see what took place and how it is going to be addressed. Okay? So as for the passengers, yes, we have a responsibility towards the passengers, but through the airlines who directly inform passengers that, hey, we do have a problem on our hands. We are unable to do our flight. We have information that this flight will come on in the next 2 hours, 3 hours, whatever it is, and they manage them. Listen to me carefully. We have a responsibility towards the passengers, yes, but through the airlines. So this is what it is. We very quickly called airlines and informed them of the situation. Yeah. Did I complete that? Or yeah, you know. So yes, okay. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Yeah. Are they? They are not salary. Specifically, I can tell you they are not salary related. Yeah.
Then my second question is, you just told us that you were in a meeting, and since we came in the morning, we understood that the authorities have been in the meetings with them. Right now, as we wait for the committee to finish its work, what is the conclusion that you reached with them after your meeting?
The meeting is not conclusive. It's ongoing. Yeah, there are others up there who are still talking. We are inviting third parties also to come in and see if they can also help us. The board is very much interested in this issue, and so we have all kinds of people and institutions who are coming in to help us resolve this as quickly as possible.
You did mention that you have a responsibility to the passengers.
Yes.
But you do that through the airline.
Yes.
Has your outfit supervised any move to at least get some communication ongoing to the passengers, because they are being extremely open?
Yeah.
We've spoken to them, and they are just here. Your office is just here.
Yes.
What has your outfit done? Reach them somehow directly?
Yes. I mean, there's no doubt. I mean, if you find yourself in such a situation, yes, you're not going to be happy. Okay? But we do have processes, we do have procedures in the industry where if a flight is unable to operate for one reason or the other, the airline will go ahead and advise passengers accordingly. Some of the issues could be bad weather, there's nothing that you can do about it. But then you find that when there's bad weather, we do not go down there to tell passengers that there is bad weather. It is the airline that tells you that there is bad weather, okay, because they have the information from Meteo or from the control tower or something of that nature. So yes, we have a responsibility towards them, but there is a channel in the industry that we use. Okay, yes.
Yeah, just a quick follow-up. The airlines, probably to give them a time frame, let's say the next 3 or 4 hours, if they're not able to resolve it, cancel all the flights and send the passengers home.
Yes.
Probably to give them a time frame.
Yeah.
They also don't know. I speak to some of them. They're like, okay, we are waiting on you.
Yes. As at now, all we have said is that yes, the strike is on, and we are still negotiating, and we are hoping that sometime in the day we will be able to commence normal operations. And they understand it. Because if I give you 2 hours and in 2 hours it does not happen, you're coming back to me, aren't you? So let us be a bit more, I want to be more open and more prudent about it and give facts. As soon as we are able to resolve this issue to an extent that we can pass it on to the airlines, we will very quickly pass it on to them, and then they can plan their operations accordingly. But obviously, for today, it has been disrupted. Yes.
Actually, I'm happy to hear from you that it has nothing to do with the international airlines. Is that right?
Well, that is what the controllers have said. What they have said is that their strike, at this point in time, will be aimed at the domestic carriers. No, all domestic operations.
I actually need some clarification. I'm getting a bit of confusing for you. Is it something that you took as, because you did liken the situation to bad weather, so is this something that took the board by surprise? Because you also gave a few instances where you said this weekend there were meetings, the minister has stepped in. Is this something you foresaw happening, or did this take you by surprise? And if you knew this would happen, why then are we not seeing more decisive actions on your part if you knew this would happen?
Unfortunately, I'm unable to accept the expression decisive action. You live in Ghana, don't you? Yeah, so we have been aware. They have written letters. I told you about letters that they had written to airlines and to the media about the impending strike. So definitely the issue of what was your word again?
No, the unaware, like
So if you had information and at this time of the morning you have arrived here, it means that you have some information. But let's leave that alone. I told you that we have a contingency plan. And by a contingency plan, it means that it is something that you anticipated and you have been working on. That is what that means. Okay? But as to the day and time, we were not aware. But we knew that they could spring something on us anytime. And that is why we had a contingency plan in place. And as we speak, the contingency plan is being activated to ensure that we can start operating as quickly as we can.
So does that mean you have people step in to work on behalf of the air traffic controllers?
Well, when the question time, I probably would ask Mr. Taylor but the simple answer is that yes, the contingency plan includes all kinds of things, and it takes some time to activate it. That's all that there is. Yeah. What is? No, yeah, passengers would like to know that, but the contingency plan is such that, and in most situations, you can understand, I do have a military background, and so when I come out and say a contingency plan, it's not something I'm going to preach it over radio or TV. So just be assured that we're taking the issue seriously, and we're working at it. Yes, and I'm sure that the passengers, hearing or seeing this on TV, would somehow, understand us. Okay, so it's not just something deliberate, but it's just common to us. I mean, we live in this country. There are all kinds of things happening. It's just that it's the turn of civil aviation today. But we're doing our best to ensure that these things are. I'm sure in the past, where is BFT? Yes, BFT has done a lot of reports on us. Other stations, radio stations and so on, about the performance of civil aviation and, you know, the many things that we are doing here to develop the aviation industry in this country. Yes, so obviously as a human institution, we will be challenged once a while. But the point is, if you are challenged,
right. Thank you very much for staying on. We just came from the conference room of the Ghana Civil Aviation Authority, and well, the press conference had to do with the partial withdrawal of service by a section of the air traffic controllers, and it's left domestic travelers stranded at the Kotoka, Kumasi and Tamale airport. And the Air Commodore Kwame Manfi, retired, who was addressing the conference, said that the committee that was set up to look into the matters as far as the demands of GATCA was concerned has not finished its job, hence is unable to deliver. And it's made clear that not all of the Ghana Civil Aviation Authority is on strike, but only the air traffic controllers. And this, I told you earlier, has led to the grounding of some flights, and passengers have been stranded at the Kotoka International Airport. But he's apologized for any inconvenience caused. As to whether passengers are happy with it, we'll find out in subsequent broadcasts. They've also apologized to carriers, and well, the other thing is the fact that they have a contingency plan. A few hours ago, Air Commodore Manfi had mentioned of this contingency plan, though he wouldn't disclose exactly what the plan is. A few hours ago, he said it will kick in a few hours now, and we haven't seen anything kick in yet. But he says later in the day, things should have normalized at the Kotoka International Airport. Tell me how this is affecting you. If you were scheduled to go on any flight, you can do so on our social media platforms. Joynews on TV, on Facebook, and on Twitter, or at Kemini on Twitter. I'll be right back. Don't go away. Thank you very much for staying on News Desk. Now, the Ghana National Education Campaign Coalition wants government to take another look at the feasibility of the free compulsory basic education program before deciding to implement its progressive free senior high school policy next year. Executive Council Chairman of the group, Bright Apia, at a press briefing in Accra, reiterated the current challenges in implementing the FQ program should serve as enough motivation for government to map out strategies it intends using to implement the free senior high school policy.
President Mahama's free SHS policy announcement during the State of the Nation's address in Parliament has generated heated debate among various segments of society. Whereas the opposition MPP is of the view that the president has stolen the idea of their 2012 presidential candidate, some civil society groups are questioning how realistic and sustainable the policy is. The latest group to join in the debate is the Ghana National Education Campaign Coalition. The group wants government to use the FQ program as a yardstick to determine the feasibility of the progressive free SHS policy.
How is government able to finance the free compulsory basic education? That's the question that we need to ask. And then also ask how government is also going to finance the free SHS. There's no policy that cannot happen. I think that we need to discuss the various issues that will be an impediment in the implementation of that policy, and then come to a reasonable conclusion as to how we want to move forward. And what we are saying is that all the roadmap that government is going to do in the implementation of that policy should involve civil society, should involve the media, should even involve communities. And then to inform us that this is the way you want to do it, so that we follow through. We don't want a situation where, in terms of implementation of that policy, everything will be on an ad hoc basis.
The group also wants government to address the challenges that are peculiar to teacher deployment and the several ghost names present in the payroll of teachers.
We are also concerned that the question of ghost names on the payroll and delay in processing allowances for newly posted teachers have also not been fully addressed. We believe that there are a lot of ghost names on our payrolls and that have accounted for some issues that we are confronted with. And more so too, if you look at the new teachers that have been posted to the rural communities, there are also delays in terms of processing the little allowances that we give them. And these two issues, we think that we need to pay attention to it and have it as a priority.
The coalition is also of the view that government must take a second look at the complex bureaucracy of basic education management. These bureaucracies, according to the group, has resulted in delays in management decisions and weak performance monitoring systems in basic schools. Decentralizing the process, according to the group, is the way forward.
I have with me two gentlemen. To my far left is Executive Director, Ghana Institute of Governance and Security, David Agbe. And then to my immediate left, I have the Executive Council Chairman, Ghana National Education Campaign Coalition, Bright Appiah. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for joining us in the studio.
Thank you,
since we know what Bright thinks, I want to start with David. Really, what do you think about this free senior high school debate?
Thank you very much for the opportunity. I think that whilst it is enshrined in our constitution, it's good that we pursue it to ensure that it becomes, practical for everybody to really enjoy it. But you also realize that there are a lot of challenges as far as our education system is concerned. As Mr. Bright Appiah, enumerated a lot of challenges. You could realize that when you go to our rural areas, the villages, for instance, they do not have access to even electricity. They do not have access to a library. They do not have access to, this kind of technology, computers and all those stuff. And so they are so much challenged as we speak. And Common Chalk, one of the villages that we visited in Adansi area, in Prechiri area, for instance, you could realize that Common Chalk, they do not have Common Chalk to even use it to write on notice board for students to actually learn. So you could realize that as we speak now, Ghana is actually challenged as far as educational system is concerned. And so government need to actually concentrate on the rural areas. They write the same exam with those people living in Accra, Kumasi, Takoradi, and other environs. When they get in there, you realize that those students found wanting because they do not have the common logistics, to learn.
Which is one of the issues that the coalition, the Education Campaign Coalition, has raised, that we should look at quality. I am happy the conversation has changed now from who brought it first and who brought it second.
Precisely
because
so.
For me, it was a very unnecessary debate. The most important thing is that we have education for our children. Why is it important that we look at F-cube, restructure it before we think of that?
Yeah, well, it's very important because we've learned lessons out of that, and because of that, because of the F-cube program, we implemented the capitation grant, the school feeding program, the free uniform, and then the laptops or so. So these are policies that we managed to implement. So it means that there's a roadmap for those policies. And out of that roadmap, the implementation also brought us certain difficulties, and that for me should be the concentration. That is where we should see how best we can address those issues before we move further in the implementation of that policy. And the difficulty that we have in this policy should also be as a guide in implementing the free SHS policy that we are introducing. So that is very critical. And then also the issues that came out of it. There are delays in the disbursement of capitation grant. There are delays for us to release money for caterers and all that, and there are policy issues, especially when it comes to the distribution of uniforms. There wasn't a clear formula, as to how government even want to distribute those uniforms. So it was done on ad hoc basis to the extent that you'd even see some MPs and politicians having uniforms at the back of their boot and distributing the committees and all that. So it's a social intervention program. We need to approach it that way. And when you look at the free SHS program that we'd want to introduce, I say that I'm happy that we are talking about the issue of who brought it first or who brought it second and who is implementing, whose vision it is and all that. I think what we should be guided by is a constitutional provision that the government has decided to invoke. So we need to also guide the process and then have engagement with the government to see how we can implement policy without any difficulties. And these are a few questions that we are asking as to whether where the money will be coming from. And the president stated yesterday that we should wait for him till 2015 when he releases the budget. He's just going to make sure that we're going to have about 71 million Ghana cedis for that program. And what we're also interested in is that, yes, that announcement has been made and they will be anticipating that in the budget. But what we are going to also carry forward is we are going to do analysis of the various programs that are in place and whether that 51 million Ghana cedis would even be enough as a start for the implementation of the SHS program itself. So there are a lot of discussions that will be going on, but we think that government needs to also engage the civil society to also bring some of the issues that we talked about yesterday. Because one of the issues that we are also confronted with is the distribution of textbooks, which is very critical for learning because it's also enhancing learning outcomes. But in the State of the Nation's address, the president said that they have distributed 12 million textbooks, But the research that we did in certain rural districts, we realized that, yes, the books do get to the district all right, but 30% of the English textbooks do not get to the rural communities, So you may distribute all that, but if the policy and the formula is not right, it is very difficult for you to say that those who are supposed to benefit from the system are really benefiting from the system. And these are some preliminary questions that we need to ask ourselves before we start the implementation of the policy. And I think that the time is now.
David, you are a governance expert. Yeah. One time we were told that it's for day schools. Then we realized that indeed the day schools already are not paying fees. Then we say now that in fact it's for boarders. We would absorb feeding and leave accommodation for the parents to take up. How should we go about this free senior high school education if indeed we need it to be free at all?
I think that whilst we've all come into a consensus that is something that we need to implement as far as it is in our 1992 constitution, that yes, here we are, we've gotten to a certain stage that we need to actually practicalize what has been enshrined in the constitution. Fine enough. You were raising a point that, it doesn't matter whoever, brought it here and there. I think that it was in the constitution. But here is the case that, yes, and it is still in the constitution. It is good that somebody saw it that, yes, this issue has not been practicalized. So he is trying to provoke the debate for all of us to actually debate it and find how best we can actually make it practical. So I think that the one who called for it and those people who also, brought it into the constitution, they are all, good. It's something that is good. If it is there and nobody is attending to it and somebody has provoked the debate, fine enough.
Do we all need it? Do we all need the free senior high school education?
As you speak now, I think that majority of Ghanaians live in the rural areas. About 60% are in the rural areas. So for those people, they are actually challenged. So when it comes to free education, they will clap and jump for it. But those in the urban centers, they have other alternative means. But those people, it is cocoa, cassava, and those menial jobs that they do to use it to cater for their sons or their what. So
I'm thinking of a country where we are currently faced with some real huge crisis with our wage bill, with our depreciating cedi, with the kind of inflation we are faced with now. Do we all need the senior high school education? Yeah, the free senior high school education.
Yeah, we need it, not for the need. It's always there. But as to whether we'll be able to practicalize this is what we have to discuss. And how we'll be able to do it is a question that we need to ask ourselves. Looking at I always want to use the FQ program as an example. Because when you look at the Constitution, it is clear as to what free compulsory basic education is. And what every single child in Ghana must enjoy a free basic education. When you are below the age of 14, 15 years, you need to enjoy that. But the question that we'd also need to ask is, do we have all the children in Ghana enjoying those the FQ program? But if not, then what went wrong? And what is the constitutional provision that we can invoke to also compel certain institutions to live up to their responsibilities? And in the same way, that is how we'd also have this also in the Constitution, and the President wants to practicalize it. So what we should be interested in is whether it is visible. And these are the very questions that we are asking and then to see how best we can move it forward. As for the need, it is something that
because I'm
need,
thinking, is it possible for those who can afford to pay, and then those who can't?
Of course, you see, when you look at our educational system, from primary to JHS, the transition is very smooth. You don't need to, as we call it, sieve. You don't need to qualify before you can have access to GHS. But when you look at the secondary education, it is more or less like you need a certain number of grades to be able to access secondary education. So that grading system is there, is established. So it's also another area that you have to look at. Now that you are going to make SHS education free, is the free going to target the people who are qualified, or is the free also going to target those who are less privileged because of certain difficulties they were not able to make the grades and get into the secondary school? These are all questions that we need to ask. And if you look at all the people who had the opportunity to graduate to the senior high school, are people who more or less will say that they are middle class people. It's only a little percentage that are people that you say that they don't fall within the middle class, and because some of these children, because they don't get access to the secondary education, what they do is that they also branch into other technical and vocational skills and all that. And this is where you find a lot of children who are less privileged in society. So are we going to deal with issues concerning middle class people, or we are going to open the floodgate so that immediately you finish GHS, you would have the opportunity to access secondary education? These are practical questions that we need to ask, so that we don't develop the policy that would target already made people in society, but social intervention programs that would also give some kind of a helping hand to the less privileged in society. So these are very critical issues that we need to assess.
David, a country that needs money to do a lot of things, a country that is battling with this fallen cedi, is battling with inflation, and is battling with this huge wage bill, which won't go down anytime soon. In implementing free senior high school education, how must we go about it, especially now that we are looking at giving the schools back to the missions? Will they be included?
Let me start by saying that is why I disagree with the president by saying that we should wait until 2015 and all those things will be seen in the budget. When they assume power or office, the president said that they are going to establish or make sure that we get 200 secondary schools in our villages here and there. Now it is 50, and then they are going to do it gradually. And they also said that they are working around the clock to make sure that they get funding here and there. Now we are probing to find out where is the funding sources. Are they going to get it only from Get Fund or World Bank support or any other agency that government is intended to get revenue? Or are we going to generate enough revenue in Ghana to be able to support that idea? So we need to actually probe it to ensure that those things will be practicalized. When government comes and say that, yes, here we are, we promise you heaven and earth, now we cannot take you to heaven, then what do we do? So I think that it is legitimate concern that we actually probe government official for them to tell us exactly where they are going to, get revenue to embark on this noble idea. I think that it's fantastic that government is intended to, ensure that those things come into fruition, but we need to actually tax them.
And so whether this is sustainable or not, we are yet to find out. We'll talk about sustainability and like Bright is put to the feasibility of implementing this. But there's this very interesting story about, since we were talking about education, I just deem it fit to talk about this as well. A 6-year-old girl who can't walk, and she goes to school and the headmistress says, I want only active children, and this 6-year-old can't walk, so she's not active, she can't be in my school. Let's take a look at that, and then when we come back, I'll have the two of you comment on this quickly.
Alberta is not a happy woman. All emotions she had bottled up for some time finally let loose. She is hurt. Her daughter was denied education because of her physical disability. Her 6-year-old daughter's crime was that she cannot walk. Alberta brings out a school uniform she sold for the daughter and tells me her investment is now a waste.
See? I'm around your area.
Which can hold something. The hand cannot hold a top, cannot hold a pencil. The top. Now that I've seen that, I haven't seen her, and I don't know anything about her.
Yes.
Black.
The child has never been to, no, she can't stand.
No, if this child can't stand, how can you admit her in this public school?
No,
she has to attend a special school. I think Bechem or
no, Bechem is for people
a deaf school.
Yeah, but the child is not in a deaf school. So why do you take the child to a deaf school? When the child, is it because the child cannot walk?
So that was the assistant headmistress of the Wenchi Methodist School B in the Bunahafu region. Bright, I'll start with you. Look at that.
It's a problem, but I think there's a policy. We have a policy in place to deal with issues of this nature. You know, now education is inclusive. You know, so if you have some level of disability, the law requires that you can also go to the formal education. But largely, what the system requires to do is that they need to do assessment of your disability, and then see whether it is mild or it is a disability that you can't go to the the physically challenged school, or you can still be in the normal system. Until that assessment is done, I don't think that anybody has a right to deny the child education, and unless we finish with that process and then come to the conclusion that the disability of that child is so deep that that child cannot be in a normal school, you need to go to where we have the physically challenged schools. But mild disability is accepted that you can still be within the normal
mainstream.
Yes, and even if they are there, the law requires that in terms of how they write exams, in terms of how they absorb lessons, is also different. The teacher must have that skill to be able to do that. Especially when it comes to examination, the law requires that at least that person must be given 2 hours ahead of the normal student. And sometimes, because teachers do not have that skill to handle such kids, and they also want to shy away from responsibilities, as it is for any normal person, people don't want to accept responsibility. So they just want to do away with such people. But if the disability of this girl is mild, then certain civil action can also be taken against the school for the denial.
And who has to take that civil action?
Yeah, the parent can do so.
Beyond the parents?
Oh yes, there are certain cases that we are handling now that we are acting as interested parties in those cases. So some of these cases, when they come, we try to pursue them.
Yes, and hopefully we'll pursue Marvin's case as well.
Exactly.
Hattie child, no education because she can't walk.
Yes, like the woman said, it is not her fault actually, because if they should have a disability school somewhere at that tender age, 6 years, maybe when the person turns to 15 years thereabout, then he can go to the mainstream. But as it is now, it is difficult for her because they do not have such a skill to be able to, take the child through all those processes. So we cannot fault the woman. And that is why government need to concentrate on the villages or the rural areas in terms of making sure that everybody gets access to education. Because when you come to the urban center in Accra, for instance, hardly do you see those kind of things. The parents will obviously send the child to any good school that could take care of that small kids until the person gets to a certain period of maturity before he's been enrolled into any, how should I even put it?
Well-endowed school.
Yes. So look at Wenchi, a village. If you know Wenchi, I know Wenchi very well. All those areas in Brona Halfway, I know the village very well. So you realize that the woman do have a challenge over there. So we cannot fault the woman or the school. It is the responsibility of government to also ensure that those in the villages get good access to education.
But will this be one of the challenges of FQ, of implementing it?
Yeah, well, it is, but the issue concerning the small girl would also depend on, as I've said, the assessment of the baby as to whether her disability is mild or is a very is a heavy one.
What will constitute a mild or?
Yeah, they have a system of determining that. But if I look at the girl, I think that her disability is not as serious as we think it is, But before the school can do that admission, that process must also be established. And for me, that is where we have the difficulty, because some of the assessment centers are not available in certain areas. So how then do you do assessment of that and say that you want to put a child in a normal school, or you want to send a child to a physically challenged school and all that? So these are practical questions that we need to ask. And the system must make some of these things available. When you go to Kenya, for instance, and the story that I heard when I went round was that it was Ghanaian experts that trained them as to how to deal with their disability policies there.
Then it's even sadder that this headmistress didn't know about this.
In that area, Kenya. But us who are experts, we are not able to deal with our own issues and all that. So we need to see, these are issues that we can also test in the law court to also see how things will go for people who are less privileged in our society.
I see. Unfortunately, we have to end our conversation here. Recall, I wanted us to talk about the sustainability of this free senior high school education. So perhaps another conversation will do that. Thank you very much, gentlemen. I've been talking to Bright Appiah, who is Executive Council for the Ghana National Education Campaign Coalition. He's to my immediate left. And to my far left, there is David Agbe. He's Executive Director at the Ghana Institute of Governance and Security. I'm totally grateful for their company. I'm even more grateful for yours. Thank you very much for staying through the year. Stay on for CNBC's Power Lunch. I'll see you at midday on News Today. Goodbye. My name is Kemini Nyamani Amana.